Hi, and welcome back to another episode of E&D's How to Make Tech Easy. Today we're going to talk about two new products that I just purchased. One is a DAC with a built-in preamp, and the other are audio speakers designed for the computer and the desktop. So let's get started in taking a look at these two new components that I just purchased that will not be used in my main audio system, but will be used here on my home PC. And as you can see, one of them is the DAC and the other is the speaker. So the first component that I just purchased is a DAC, and it's the Pro-ject Pre-box S2 Digital. Yeah, quite a lengthy name, but there it is. Okay, and on the back it's got some inputs and some outputs. The inputs are USB, so you can plug your computer into it with a USB cable, a coax, which is basically an RCA plug, and the last is an optical cable that allows you to plug in optical output from a source. So these three inputs allow you to plug in different sources at the same time based on the connection, and with that it then interprets everything digitally into analog, DAC, digital to analog converter, and it outputs it into these two outputs. The red is right and the white is left. I have taken this little box and put it into my reference system, which I will show you more about in a moment, just to hear the difference, to compare it to my main DAC in my reference system, which is a Bryston BDA-3. And this sells for about 1/10 the cost of the Bryston DAC. Or, said another way, the Bryston DAC costs about 10 times more than this. So, with that in mind, let me give you some perspective on my reference system so you can understand the equipment that I use to play the music on. Hello, I am now hand holding the camera, so forgive me for any shakiness that you may see. So in front of you are the main components of my reference system that I talked about, which is a 2-channel left and right audio system that I love listening to my music on. So up top is the Bryston BDA-3 DAC, digital to audio converter. Beneath that is an old Theta Data Basic Transport 2, which plays CDs. Below that is my preamp, known as a Jeff Rowland Concerto. And above that, to the left in the shadows, is a Pro-ject preamp for my phono cartridge. And what it does is it basically boosts the signal coming from the phono cartridge that I have on my turntable with enough output then that the preamp can handle it properly. Beneath that is a PC that I built called a Straycom FC8 Alpha. It's a fanless PC running an Intel chip with a dedicated USB card called the JCAT Femto that basically is dedicated to audio output and isolates the signal from the rest of the PC into the card and then basically sends it out hopefully nice and cleanly. On the left here is a power supply known as a Shanti. The Shanti is a linear power supply that provides power to the JCAT Femto USB card, and the USB card, as I mentioned, isolates the signal from the internet that it gets it from. It's called a streamer. This PC is called a streamer, and it sends a signal from the USB card up to the Bryston DAC, which then interprets that into analog and sends the signal back down to the preamp. The preamp then sends the output to the amplifiers, and I have 2 amplifiers which are called monoblocks, and I'll show you those in a second. On to the amplifiers. Here is the amplifier that I use. I have 2 of these, as I said. They're known as Jeff Rowland monoblock amplifiers, known as Model 535. 535 can run stereo or mono. I run them in monoblock, which gives me a lot more power and control over the speakers that it sends the audio signal to. The speakers that I have are really two types. One is a Chario. This is a Chario speaker. And the Chario speaker is a two-way speaker. Let me take off the cover and show you what it looks like. The Chario speaker that you see in front of you has a inverted setup where the tweeter is on the bottom. That guy right there. And the woofer mid-bass is on top. And in the back is a port that enhances the output from the speaker. I don't know if you can see it here, but there's a port there. There you go. And that's the satellite side of the system. And for bass, I have two of these. These are known as REL subwoofers. And if you can see that there, okay. The REL subwoofer I have is an S3. And it's a self-powered subwoofer, and I have two of them, one here and one here. And they are both hooked up to the signal coming out of the amplifier. So my monoblock amplifier has the output that goes to the speaker here, the Chario Sonnet Academy it's called, made in Italy. Beautiful speakers, beautiful exquisite woodworking, and the sound is phenomenal. And the subwoofer as well. So the two outputs come out of this amplifier. Amplifier drives the speaker, the Chario, and the subwoofer has its own amplifier that allows it to produce sound. The new component, known as the Pro-ject Pre-Box S2 Digital. Why they couldn't think of a shorter name, I don't know. I'm just going to call it the S2. Okay? Stick with me on this one. The unit's very small, and given its price point, I wasn't expecting it to do very well against the Bryston DAC, or any DAC for that matter that costs 10 times the price. It does three formats. First is PCM, like the Bryston does, at up to 768 kilohertz, which is, again, 768,000 samples per second. And the second it does is DSD, like the Bryston, at 512 or up to 512 resolution. So DSD 512, PCM 768K, just like the Bryston. And the third format it does is an extension of PCM known as MQA. Is a format that extends PCM to try to give you more resolution, better sound quality, of course. And it's only able to be accessed through Tidal streaming service. So the Tidal streaming service is what I use with my streamer, my Straycom FC8 PC with, again, the dedicated JCAT Femto sound card, USB sound card. And that's what plugs into the Bryston. Today, I'm going to substitute the Bryston for this and see how it sounds. The rest of my reference system for context is the following. The cables that hook up the components together are known as Carter's clear reflection. They are used from the Bryston DAC to the preamp, and then from the preamp to the amplifiers, and then the speaker wire is the same, Carter's clear reflection. The USB cable that connects the streamer, the Straycom FC8 Alpha PC, through the JCAT Femto card, is called a Wire World Starlight 7 cable, and that plugs into the Bryston USB input just like this. And I'm going to substitute the Bryston for this component with that same Wire World Starlight 7 cable. One thing you should know is that before the Starlight 7 cable is plugged into the Bryston, there's a device called a USB Regen. It's made by a company called Uptone, and that's fed by a linear power supply as well. So I'm trying to introduce technology that takes the shortcomings of USB and quiets down the noise floor and the noise in the cable itself to lower that noise floor, so when I listen to music you get a better detail and presence and separation of instruments, etc. So all of the same wires will be used for this as it's used for the Bryston, with one exception. The Bryston uses what they call balanced cables that go between it and the preamp, the Jeff Rowland preamp. This does not have balance. This has normal unbalanced RCA, and I will use a substitute cable that's clear reflection that I have as well in an RCA format that will allow me to plug this into the Jeff Rowland. On to the results. And the results are pretty surprising. For $400, the S2 Pro-ject DAC that I have plugged in over here now was excellent for the money. I could not believe the sonic quality or the sound quality coming out of this $400 deck for both PCM at normal CD resolution as well as 768 PCM, 768K, as well as DSD up to 512. I have a library of a few thousand songs stored digitally, and I have those songs at different resolutions. I have normal CD format, which is 44.1 kilohertz. I have 96 kilohertz. I have 192 kilohertz. I have DSD 512, DSD 256, DSD 64, etc. And all of those samples that I played were absolutely incredible for the value of the $400 that you would spend for this S2. It is not exactly the same as my Bryston. I have to be clear about that. The Bryston is significantly better in a number of areas, which is expected. The overall air around instruments, separation of instruments, detail, bass depth, soundstage is very different, or better, should I say, than the S2. But the S2 did sound quite remarkable, up to a point. On loud passages, rock music, etc., where there was a lot going on, it tended to sound a bit congested. But then again, comparing this to a $4,000 or so DAC, not necessarily a fair comparison, but I wanted to hear the difference, and I was pleasantly surprised at how well it did perform, even with these limitations or differences between this and the Bryston BDA-3. The thing that I did not expect to hear, which, because I didn't have an MQA compatible deck before, was the difference between MQA and PCM. As I said, MQA is an extension of PCM. Proprietary format, and some devices support it and some do not. The Bryston does not. The S2 from Pro-ject does. I was astonished at how some songs, did sound significantly different in certain respects than the original CD PCM format. That's not to say it sounds better, but it did sound different. In some cases, the PCM versus the MQA sounded louder, even though my preamp was set at the same decibel level. And that's because I was told some MQA files do sound louder, for whatever reason. There are some instruments that sound more pronounced, or some passages that sound more pronounced in some areas in MQA than they did on PCM. Not to say it was better, it was different. Is it more realistic for what the author or the musician intended? I don't know. That's what they say. But it was not bad, it was just different. So if you're looking for a system, an audio system, that's more comparable in price point to what the S2 is about, I suggest you take a look at the S2 as a preamp DAC that you can use to convert digital into audio, listen to your headphone through it, because there's a headphone jack on it with a volume control, and also feed into your amplifiers for your system if you want to listen to music through speakers. So that's my recommendation, that's my overall assessment. I hope you found it useful. I'm sure there are plenty of people that will find critics with my assessment, but I tried to be fair and balanced in implementing this test with this S2 DAC in line with my reference system, keeping everything else the same. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I welcome your comments and criticisms. Well, not really criticisms, but comments below. Thank you for your time. I hope everyone stays safe and healthy during this coronavirus episode that we have, and hopefully it'll be over shortly. Probably not, but please stay safe and healthy. And again, if you like the video, please do a like below. Thank you for your time.